The forgotten voice, the grand assembly begins. The crystal spires of Nexus Station stretched into the void like frozen lightning, their surfaces gleaming with the light of 3 nearby stars. For 500 years, this magnificent structure had served as the heart of galactic civilization, hosting the Grand Assembly where representatives from 47 species gathered to shape the future of known space. Today marked the 500th Assembly, a celebration of unity and progress that would be remembered for generations. High Chancellor Morden of the Avian Hegemony stood at the central podium, his golden feathers catching the artificial light as he spread his wings in the traditional gesture of welcome. His voice, translated instantly into dozens of languages, echoed through the vast chamber that could hold 10,000 beings. "Fellow children of the stars," he began, his words carrying the weight of ceremony. "We gather today not merely to conduct business, but to celebrate the triumph of civilization over chaos, of cooperation over conflict. 5 centuries ago, our ancestors dreamed of a galaxy united in peace and prosperity. That dream has become reality." The assembled delegates erupted in cheers, clicks, buzzes, and various other sounds of approval. Representatives from the silicon-based crystalline collective chimed like wind bells, while the aquatic depth-dwellers created harmonic vibrations that resonated through the water-filled sections of their viewing area. It was a symphony of alien approval that spoke to the diversity and unity of the Federation. Ambassador Zektar of the Reptilian Dominion sat in the 3rd tier, his scaled hide a deep emerald that had darkened with age. Unlike the younger delegates around him, he did not join in the celebration. His yellow eyes held a weight of memory that few in the chamber shared. He remembered things that others had forgotten, conversations that had been dismissed, and a species that had simply vanished from galactic discourse. "The Federation has grown strong," Chancellor Morden continued, "precisely because we have learned to identify and embrace those races capable of contributing to our collective advancement. We have opened our arms to the brilliant, the innovative, the peaceful. We have rightfully excluded those who would bring only primitive violence and chaos to our perfect society." The forgotten embassy Zektar's mind drifted to a memory from a century ago. He had been young then, serving as a junior diplomatic aide when the humans first made contact. They had arrived in crude metal ships that burned chemical fuel, their technology laughably primitive compared to Federation standards. Their representative, a middle-aged woman named Ambassador Patricia Williams, had stood before a much smaller version of this same assembly. "We come in peace," she had said, her voice steady despite the obvious nervousness in her posture. "Humanity seeks only to learn, to grow, and to contribute what we can to the greater galactic community. We may be new to space travel, but we bring unique perspectives, resilience, and an eagerness to prove ourselves worthy of membership." The response had been polite but dismissive. The humans were granted observer status, the galactic equivalent of a child's table at a formal dinner. They could watch, they could learn, but they had no voice in decisions that affected the galaxy. Their requests for technology sharing were denied. Their offers of cultural exchange were ignored. Their warnings about certain unexplored regions of space were dismissed as the fears of a species still learning to navigate between stars. Year after year, the human delegation returned. They brought gifts of art, music, and literature that few bothered to examine. They shared scientific discoveries that were considered quaint by Federation standards. They offered military assistance that was laughed off by species who had evolved beyond such primitive concepts. Each time, they were politely told to wait, to prove themselves further, to demonstrate that they deserved a seat at the table of advanced civilizations. The last human delegation had appeared 97 years ago. Ambassador Williams, now elderly and grey-haired, had made one final plea. "We have waited patiently for a century," she had said, her voice still strong despite her age. "We have followed every protocol, respected every decision, and asked for nothing but the chance to contribute. How much longer must we prove ourselves worthy of basic respect?" The response had been the same as always. "Wait, prove yourselves, demonstrate your value." Ambassador Williams had nodded slowly, thanked the assembly for their time, and left. Humanity had never returned. The mysterious silence most delegates had barely noticed when the human embassy closed. A few bureaucrats had filed reports about the empty office space becoming available for reassignment. The Federation's exploratory vessels had noted that human ships no longer appeared in their usual patrol routes. Trade requests from human colonies had simply stopped arriving. Some younger species had asked about the humans during their own admission processes. Where had they gone? Why had they abandoned their quest for membership? The standard response had become that humanity had proven itself unworthy of advancement, that they had retreated to their primitive corner of the galaxy when faced with the true challenges of interstellar civilization. Zektar knew better. He had been among the few who had actually studied human culture, who had read their literature and examined their art. He had seen something in their eyes that others had missed, not defeat, but determination, not withdrawal, but preparation. He had tried to raise concerns about the silence from human space, but his warnings had been dismissed as the paranoid fears of an aging diplomat. Today, Chancellor Morden announced, bringing Zektar back to the present. "We celebrate not just our past achievements, but our bright future. The Federation grows stronger with each passing year, guided by the wisdom of our most advanced civilizations." The lights in the assembly chamber suddenly flickered. A low vibration ran through the station's structure, causing several delegates to look around nervously. The crystalline collective began chiming in harmonic patterns that indicated confusion and concern. "Technical difficulties," Chancellor Morden announced calmly. "Our engineers will resolve the issue momentarily." But the vibration grew stronger, and the lights continued to flicker through the massive transparent aluminum windows that surrounded the chamber. Delegates began to notice something strange. The starfield outside was changing, being blocked by dark shapes that seemed to materialize from nowhere. A young aquatic delegate pointed toward the windows with one of her tentacles. "What are those?" The shapes resolved into ships. Not just any ships, but vessels of a design that few in the chamber recognized. They were sleek and angular, built from materials that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with a precision and coordination that spoke of advanced technology and military discipline. One ship became 10, 10 became 100, 100 became 1,000. They surrounded Nexus Station in a perfect sphere, their dark holes creating an eclipse that blocked out the stars themselves. Emergency alarms began to sound throughout the station. Security forces scrambled to battle stations while defensive systems powered up, but the ships made no aggressive moves. They simply held position, silent and menacing, creating a cage of metal and mystery around the most important gathering in galactic history. The recognition, Zektar stared at the ships with growing recognition. The whole design was different, the technology clearly advanced far beyond what he remembered. But there was something familiar about their construction, something that reminded him of those crude chemical rockets that had first brought humanity to the stars. "Attention Nexus Station," A voice suddenly broadcast over all communication channels. It was clear, confident, and spoke in perfect galactic standard. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Navy. We request permission to address the assembly." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions in dozens of languages, while security forces tried to establish communication protocols. Chancellor Morden's golden feathers had turned pale with shock, and his voice cracked as he tried to maintain order. Terran. He managed to say the humans, but they vanished decades ago. "We did not vanish," Admiral Chen's voice replied, somehow managing to sound both respectful and commanding. "We simply stopped wasting our time begging for scraps from a table where we were never welcome. We have spent the last century building something better." Through the windows, delegates could see that the human ships had activated running lights, revealing their true size and scope. Each vessel was massive, larger than anything in the Federation's fleets. Their dark hulls gleamed with what appeared to be advanced armor plating and weapon systems that defied easy classification. "We are not here to threaten," Admiral Chen continued. "We are here to talk. But this time, we will be heard." The broadcaster holographic display materialized above the central podium, showing the image of a woman in a crisp blue uniform. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared to be in her 40s, with short black hair and intelligent brown eyes that held no trace of the deference that had characterized earlier human diplomats. She stood on what appeared to be the bridge of a starship, surrounded by advanced technology that made Federation equipment look primitive by comparison. "Members of the Galactic Federation," she began, her voice carrying easily through the sudden silence. "My name is Admiral Sarah Chen, and I represent the combined forces of the Terran Colonial Navy, the Earth Defense Force, and the United Colonies of Humanity. We have come to present our credentials for full membership in the Federation." Chancellor Morden found his voice. "Admiral Chen, with respect, humanity was given every opportunity to prove itself worthy of membership. Your species chose to withdraw from the process rather than meet our standards." Admiral Chen's expression remained neutral. "With respect, Chancellor, we were never given a real opportunity. For 100 years, we knocked on your door, offering our friendship, our knowledge, and our assistance. We were treated as curiosities at best, nuisances at worst. We were told to wait, to prove ourselves, to demonstrate our worth to beings who had already decided we had none." The hologram shifted, showing historical footage of human diplomatic missions. The delegates watched themselves, or their predecessors, dismissing human offers of aid, laughing at human innovations, and treating human representatives with barely concealed contempt. "We were told that we were too primitive, too violent, too young to contribute anything meaningful to galactic civilization," Admiral Chen continued. "So we stopped asking for permission and started proving ourselves in the only way that apparently matters, through strength." The demonstration, the display changed again, showing images of human colonies that had flourished in the decades since their withdrawal from Federation space. Cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants, orbital habitats that housed millions, and terraforming projects that had transformed barren worlds into gardens. The technology on display was clearly decades ahead of anything the Federation possessed. "While you debated our worthiness," Admiral Chen said, "we built a civilization that spans 200 star systems. We developed technologies that make your fastest ships look like toys. We created weapons that could crack planets and defenses that could stop them. We did all of this without your guidance, without your approval, and without your help. chamber remained silent, the weight of the revelation settling over the delegates like a heavy blanket. Even the most advanced species in the Federation was struggling to comprehend what they were seeing. "But we are not here to gloat," Admiral Chen continued. "We are here to offer you one final chance to treat us as equals. We have learned much in our century of silence, and we are prepared to share that knowledge with those who are willing to respect us." Zektar stood slowly, his old bones creaking with the effort. "Admiral Chen," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber, "I remember you. Or rather, I remember your great-grandmother, Ambassador Patricia Williams. She was a remarkable woman." Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. "She was. She never lived to see this day, but she taught us that patience and preparation are more powerful than anger and pride. We have been patient. We have prepared. Now we are ready to take our place in the galaxy." The implications hung in the air like a challenge. The Federation had ignored humanity for a century, dismissed them as primitive and unworthy. Now those same humans had returned with technology that surpassed their own and the strength to enforce their demands for respect. The question was no longer whether humanity deserved a place at the table. The question was whether the Federation was ready to accept them as equals, or if they would choose to face the consequences of their century of dismissal. As Admiral Chen waited for a response, her 1,000 ships maintained their perfect formation around Nexus Station, silent guardians of humanity's newfound power. The age of human subservience was over. The age of human strength had begun. The reckoning, the weight of truth, the silence that followed Admiral Chen's words stretched like a taut wire across the assembly chamber. 47 species sat in stunned contemplation, their representatives struggling to process the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. The humans they had dismissed as primitive had not only survived their exclusion from galactic society, but had thrived beyond their wildest imagination. Chancellor Mordin's golden feathers trembled as he processed the implications. His people, the avian hegemony, had always prided themselves on their long-term thinking and strategic planning. They planned campaigns across centuries, built cities that would last millennia, yet somehow they had completely failed to anticipate. "This moment, Admiral Chen," he said carefully, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of diplomatic tradition, "you speak of taking your place in the galaxy. What exactly do you mean by that?" The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed star chart that encompassed the entire known galaxy. Human territory was marked in blue, Federation space in gold, and the various neutral and unexplored regions in different colors. The delegates gasped as they realized the true scope of human expansion. What had once been a small cluster of systems around Earth had grown into a vast empire that rivaled the Federation itself. "We mean exactly what we said a century ago," Admiral Chen replied. "We want to be part of the galactic community. We want to trade, to share knowledge, to cooperate in exploring the unknown regions of space. We want to contribute to the greater good of all sentient life." She paused, her brown eyes scanning the assembled delegates. "But we will no longer accept being treated as inferior beings begging for scraps. We will join the Federation as equals, with full voting rights and representation proportional to our population and territory, or we will continue to develop separately." General Crix of the Insectoid Collective clicked his mandibles in agitation. His species had built their reputation on military might and had always viewed the Federation's peaceful expansion as a sign of weakness. "You speak of equality, but you surround us with warships. Is this how humans negotiate? Through intimidation?" The captain's perspective, Captain Marcus Rodriguez, appeared beside Admiral Chen in the holographic display. His weathered face bore the scars of deep space exploration, and his eyes held the hardness of someone who had seen too much conflict. He wore the same blue uniform as the Admiral, but he bore additional insignia that marked him as a veteran of the frontier wars. "General Crix," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent that spoke of his origins in the outer colonies. "These are not warships. These are guardships. There is a difference." The display changed again, showing detailed schematics of the human vessels. The delegates could see that while the ships were heavily armed, they were also equipped with massive medical bays, scientific laboratories, and civilian quarters. These were not ships built purely for war, but for long-term exploration and colonization. "Every one of these ships carries 10,000 civilians," Captain Rodriguez continued. "Scientists, engineers, artists, teachers, families. They are our cities among the stars, our homes in the void. We brought them here not to threaten you, but to show you who we really are." Dr. Alina Vasquez stepped into view, her white coat marking her as a member of the scientific community. Her grey hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her green eyes sparkled with the curiosity that had driven humanity to the stars. "We have learned that strength and knowledge go hand in hand. Our ships are powerful because they need to be. Space is dangerous, filled with cosmic storms, rogue asteroids, and worse things that lurk in the dark between stars." She gestured to the display, which now showed images of human colonies under attack by crystalline entities, massive spaceborne creatures, and other threats that the Federation had never encountered. "While you debated our worthiness in the safety of your established territories, we were fighting for survival against horrors you cannot imagine. We became strong because we had to be. The Federation's dilemmas." Delegates began to murmur among themselves, their various languages creating a cacophony of confusion and concern. The revelation that humans had been facing unknown threats while the Federation remained safely insulated in their core worlds was disturbing. Even more disturbing was the realization that humanity had not only survived these encounters, but had apparently thrived because of them. Ambassador Zektar rose slowly from his seat, his aged scales catching the light as he moved. "Admiral Chen," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber, "you speak of threats beyond our borders. Are we to understand that humanity has been serving as an unwitting shield between the Federation and these dangers?" Admiral Chen nodded, gravely. "Not unwitting, Ambassador. We knew what we were doing. When we were denied membership in the Federation, we chose to settle in the frontier regions that you considered too dangerous or too worthless to claim. We made those regions our home, and we defended them against everything that emerged from the unknown." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward again. "In the last century, we have fought 17 major conflicts against non-carbon-based life forms, stopped 6 different species from developing into galactic threats, and discovered 43 new forms of exotic matter. We have mapped sectors of space that your most advanced scouts declared impossible to navigate." Dr. Vasquez added, "We have also made scientific discoveries that have revolutionized our understanding of physics, biology, and consciousness itself. We have learned to communicate with silicon-based life forms, to harness the power of quantum storms, and to heal injuries that would have been fatal with Federation medical technology." The display showed images of these achievements, human scientists working alongside crystalline entities that appeared to be made of living gemstones. massive space installations that harvested energy from stellar phenomena and medical facilities, where beings from dozens of different species worked together to push the boundaries of healing. The test of strength. Chancellor Morden's voice shook as he spoke. This is ... This is remarkable. But you must understand our position. The Federation has maintained peace for 5 centuries through careful diplomacy and the exclusion of potentially destabilizing influences. How can we be certain that admitting humanity will not upset this balance? Admiral Chen's expression hardened. You want proof of our capability? Very well. She turned to someone off-screen and spoke a few words in what appeared to be a military code. Suddenly, the space around Nexus Station began to change. The human ships, which had been maintaining perfect formation, began to move with fluid precision. They rearranged themselves into complex patterns that demonstrated not just their individual capabilities, but their ability to work together as a unified force. What you are seeing, Admiral Chen explained, is a standard defensive formation used by our deep space fleets. Each ship is in constant communication with every other ship, sharing sensor data, coordinating movements, and preparing for threats from any direction. This formation has protected our colonies from attacks that would have destroyed traditional planetary defense systems. But then, something even more impressive happened. The space around the human fleet began to shimmer, and additional ships began to appear. Not just a few, but hundreds more, their hulls gleaming with the same advanced technology as the original 1,000. These are our rapid response fleets, Captain Rodriguez explained. They were stationed in nearby systems, ready to respond to any threat. The ships you see now represent less than 1% of our total military capability. The delegates stared in stunned silence. If this was less than 1% of human military might, then humanity had built a force that could potentially challenge the combined fleets of the entire Federation. The offer of partnership, but Admiral Chen was not finished. We do not show you this to threaten you, she said. We show you this to demonstrate what we could accomplish together. Humanity has learned to survive and thrive in the most dangerous regions of space. We have faced challenges that would terrify most Federation species. But we have also learned that our greatest strength comes not from our weapons or our technology, but from our willingness to work together. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward again. We have brought gifts, she said, her voice warm with genuine enthusiasm. Technologies that could revolutionize Federation medicine, energy production, and space travel. Scientific data that could advance your understanding of the universe by centuries. Cultural exchanges that could enrich all our civilizations. The display showed holographic representations of these offerings. Medical nanobots that could repair cellular damage at the molecular level. Energy collectors that could harvest power from the vacuum of space itself and faster-than-light communication. Systems that could connect the entire galaxy in real time. But most importantly, Admiral Chen continued, we offer partnership. The galaxy is vast, and it holds wonders and dangers that none of us have yet imagined. Humanity has learned to face the unknown with courage and determination. We have learned to adapt, to evolve, to overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. She paused, her eyes meeting those of each delegate in turn. We offer to share that knowledge with you, not as subjects seeking approval, but as equals seeking cooperation. Together, we could explore regions of space that remain unmapped. Together, we could face threats that would destroy any single species. Together, we could build a future that surpasses anything any of us could achieve alone. The chamber fell silent once more as the delegates contemplated the choice before them. they could accept humanity as an equal partner and gain access to advanced technology, scientific knowledge, and military protection. Or they could maintain their traditional stance and risk facing the universe's challenges without the aid of a species that had proven itself capable of surviving and thriving in the most hostile environments imaginable. Ambassador Zektar was the first to speak. "I have lived long enough to see the consequences of both action and inaction," he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "A century ago, we chose to exclude humanity from our councils. Today, we see the results of that choice. We created a rival instead of an ally, a competitor instead of a partner." He looked directly at Admiral Chen's holographic image. "One propose that we correct that mistake. I move that humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Federation, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." The motion was seconded by several delegates, but others raised objections. The debate that followed was intense, with some species arguing that humanity's military strength made them a threat to galactic peace, while others contended that their exclusion had been a mistake from the beginning. Finally, Chancellor Moore called for order. "We will vote," he announced. "All in favor of granting humanity full membership in the Galactic Federation." The vote was close, but it passed. 26 species voted in favor, 15 against, and 6 abstained. It was not the unanimous welcome that Admiral Chen might have hoped for, but it was enough. The new era, as the vote was tallied, Admiral Chen smiled for the first time since. The transmission began. "Thank you," she said simply. "Humanity accepts membership in the Galactic Federation. We look forward to working with all of you to build a better future for all sentient life." But her expression grew serious again. "However, let this be understood. We join as equals, not as supplicants. We will contribute our full strength to the common good, but we will not be dismissed or ignored again. The age of human silence is over. The age of human partnership has begun." The human fleet began to disperse, their ships moving away from Nexus Station in perfect formation. But they did not leave the system entirely. Instead, they took up positions at the edge of the star system, establishing what appeared to be a permanent presence in the heart of Federation space. Captain Rodriguez appeared one final time. "Admiral Chen will be arriving in person tomorrow to establish the human embassy and begin formal negotiations," he announced. "We have much to discuss and much work to do together." Dr. Vasquez added, "We have prepared comprehensive data packages on our scientific discoveries, technological innovations, and exploration findings. These will be transmitted to the Federation Science Council within the hour. We believe you will find them quite illuminating." As the transmission ended, the delegates sat in stunned silence. The galaxy had changed in the space of a single afternoon. Humanity had returned not as the primitive species they remembered, but as a force that could reshape the balance of power among the stars. Ambassador Zektar allowed himself a small smile. He had lived to see the day when humanity finally took its rightful place in the galaxy. It had taken a century of patience and preparation, but they had proven themselves worthy not through begging or pleading, but through strength and determination. The age of human silence was indeed over. The age of human leadership had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the delegates slowly filed out of the assembly chamber, many of them cast worried glances at the human ships that still patrolled the edge of the system. They had wanted proof of humanity's capabilities, and they had received it in full measure. Now they would have to learn to work with a species that had spent a century preparing for this moment. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity would never again be ignored or dismissed. They had spoken, and the galaxy had listened. The only question now was whether the Federation was ready for the partnership that humanity offered, or whether they would discover that some opportunities, once lost, could never be recovered. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what would come next in this new chapter of galactic history.